existed once a beautiful and thriving land known as the Eastweald, part of the once proud and glorious kingdom of Lordaeron. Amidst the heavily wooded rolling uplands, there was nestled a rather unremarkable, yet quaint village known as Darrowshire. It is here that our tale begins, a tale that will leave you as haunted as the land itself. The now named Plague Lands are a scar upon the world that festers still, never truly able to heal. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and come, take a seat by the fire. The village of Darrowshire was removed from the complicated politics of the capital. What news did arrive came mainly from messengers dispatched along the road to Stratholme, which was the second largest city at the time. But even as removed as they were, they could not escape the horror that was to come. It began with strange rumours. It was not altogether uncommon for gossip to spread, but this time, it feels different. Hushed whispers in dark corners, hurried steps, and a series of disappearances, only for the person to turn up again days later without a word to say of where they were. Most people dismissed this as idle chatter, but the rumours only grew with intensity. Outlandish claims of people spotting dark rituals held in the black of night. A strange cult had been rapidly gaining traction. The once blue skies began to grey. People barred their doors of an evening, and suspicion and paranoia became rife. Most, however, still dismissed the signs. Some families continued their own happy lives, their own patch of fulfilled existence. One of these families were the Redpaths. Joseph was part of the local militia. He had 2 daughters, young Pamela and her older sister Jessica. His brother Carlin Redpath also lived with him in the same village, along with their sister Marlene. The village was named Darrowshire. The family was staying at an inn when Arthas and his soldiers had made their long journey to Stratholme. The rumours of the cult had reached a fever pitch. People were saying that the living dead were sighted and had requested aid from their lords. The prince himself had come to investigate and squash such wild claims. If only they were but rumours. The cult really had infiltrated the entire region, from lowly farmer to high-ranking official. Their numbers had swelled to all areas of import in the region, and they were not without purpose. They were the cult of the damned, and they worshipped death itself. For promises of power and immortality, it was death they would bring upon the land and all those who dwelled within it. They had targeted the grain supply that was stored in the local town of Andorhal, laced it with a vile concoction known as the Plague of Undeath, and they waited with eager anticipation. The grain was distributed. The lion's share had gone to Stratholme and baked into bread to sustain the growing population. But those who had already consumed it were lost. A foul sickness would fall over them as they were struck down, only to rise again, a carrier of the infection and a ravenous undead. Chaos swiftly gripped the region, and the Redpath family rushed back to their homes. They had not consumed the plagued grain, thank the light. The prince was here after all. He and his men will put a stop to this madness, they thought, and they were used to fending for themselves. They had enough provisions to last some time yet, and so they waited. But in the distance, a great fire was raging. The once beautiful horizon now emblazoned with the licking flames as the city burned. They were alone now. Joseph, Carlin, and the other men of the militia gathered. they would have to steel themselves for what was to come. But despite their acts of courage, all without exception felt an icy dread wash over them that day. The smog from the burning city had clouded the skies enough that day and night had barely become distinguishable. Occasionally, they would hear a distant scream, then it would be quickly silenced. The rest of the sounds they tried their best to shut out. Strange shambling and dragging sounds from the surrounding woodlands that were beginning to wither and die themselves. The sounds could be ignored no longer as the dead came clearly into view. A handful at first, then more and more would appear. The militia gave no ground, however. Each of the dead that dared encroach upon their village was cut down. For a brief moment, they all had hope that they could hold the line. That was until two powerful agents of death had made themselves known and joined the fray. A large and terrifying ghoul commander known as Horgus the Ravager, and a horrific death knight, a contemptuous traitor named Marduk Blackpool. Even with these formidable threats, the men held strong. Well, for a time, Joseph Redpath was cut down in sight of all the other men. But as a final blow, to break their spirits truly, the Death Knight would not let him rest. His spirit was twisted and corrupted into undeath. He now served the scourge. Like a rushing tide, the dead extinguished all life in that small village. They did not know mercy. None would be spared. Not even little Pamela, who clung to her doll as the end so abruptly came. Carlin Redpath, by some will of the light, had survived, despite being terribly wounded, along with a young woman who could barely speak, who turned out to be Jessica Redpath. Days later, they were found by members of the Argent Dawn and brought to a chapel known as the Light's Hope, the last bastion of the light in a land twisted by darkness and disease. Here, they would be nursed slowly back to health, although not even the light could heal the trauma. They must instead learn to live with it. The Redpath family burden did not end here, however. Poor little Pamela. Her spirit lingers still amidst the now silent ruins of Darrowshire. The spirits are tormented, doomed to repeat the grisly events over and over, all the while never moving on, never finding the rest they so deserve. Joseph's rotting carcass, his spirit still twisted and trapped inside, committed many more atrocities in the subsequent years since that fateful day. He would still be carving his path now, if not for the forces of the Alliance. He met his second end at Garon's Withering, an abandoned farmstead to the west. His shield still rests against the abandoned barn nearby, drawing the scourge towards the memory, his darkness proving too alluring for the dead to pass up. Like moths to flame, this cycle of hatred continued for some time, until Carlin, now a member of the Argent Crusade himself, sought out help in freeing his family once and for all. With aid from adventurers, he gathered the relics from the trapped spirits of Darrowshire, Joseph's hunting blade and Pamela's doll being notably among them. With the items gathered, he bid the spirits to gather themselves, forcing them to relive that tormented day again, as they had done so many times before. This time, he would intervene, as Joseph was cut down and brought back once again, a slash of steel, and the intervention of the light cast down the abomination instantly. No longer would he be an agent of the scourge. His spirit would finally be free of it, free to return to Pamela once more. Many have passed through the ruins of Darrowshire since, whether their spirits still linger, or perhaps just a memory not able to be forgotten. But all tell stories of little Pamela. Some hear her playing in the empty houses, or catch glimpses of the small girl peeking around corners. But all who do encounter her are touched by her story, and left remembering how she was robbed of that story far too soon. At least Pamela had her father in the end. I want to say a huge thank you to Fabiano for suggesting this campfire tales in last week's comments and reminding me how touching this story really is. And a big thank you to everyone else who supports the channel, whether it's through comments or liking or subscribing. It all really means a lot. Oh, and don't forget to come back anytime.